House will please come to order. Those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time. All members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer today by Minister Rush Jordan, guest of the gentleman from the 28th Delegate Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's go to God in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day, another day of life that you've given us to love you and to serve you. Father, I'm thankful for the opportunity to come before your throne room and lead this respected house of men and women as they seek after your heart. Father, we are thankful to live in a nation that we live in the great state of West Virginia. We're thankful to be a part and led by a government that's, as Abraham Lincoln said, is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And Father, that is predicated on people who will follow your holy word. And so, Father, I pray for each member of this House of Delegates and its leadership, that, Father, they would be men and women who would long and hunger for your word. I pray, Father, that the greatest commandment that's ever been given to us would be followed by each and every one of us, that we are to love you with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our strength, and all of our mind, and love each other, love our neighbors as ourselves. And so, Father, that divine order, loving you first, loving others second, and loving ourselves third, was given to us by Jesus himself. And Father, we're also reminded that no student is above the master, but everyone who's fully trained will be like his master. And I pray, Father, that as the decisions and the discussions that are filled this chamber, Father, I pray that that law of love would be predicated and evident by all these members. Again, God, grant them wisdom, grant them discernment, and grant us your heart. This we pray in Jesus' holy name, and all God's people said.
Amen. Members and guests will please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning by the gentleman from the 28th, Delegate Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would everyone please join me in saying the pledge to the greatest country in the world? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Friday, February 8th, 2019.
Gentleman 28th, Delegate Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
Gentleman 28th asked unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Introduction to guests. Introduction to guests. Gentleman the 44th, Delegate Hannah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to take a moment to introduce my Fraser Singleton intern for the week, Carolyn Dudley. She's a senior at Bethany College. She is a political science and history major. If the House will please make her feel welcome.
Gentleman 25th, Delegate Painter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I got two groups of people I'd like to introduce this morning. From the Mercer County Farm Bureau, from the 25th District, as we all know, the prettiest place in the world and some of the finest people in the world. I'd like to introduce Mr. Paul Canterbury and his wife, Nancy Canterbury. And from Wyoming County, two of our school service personnel, Miss Sissy Toller and Miss Mary Weichel. Stand and give them a big house welcome.
Gentleman the 63rd, Delegate Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce my intern for the week is Caitlin Cottrell from West Virginia Wesleyan University.
Gentleman the 62nd, Delegate Bibby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce my intern, Noelle Soros. She's a junior from Marshall University, majoring in criminal justice, and then looks on to law school.
Gentleman the 28th, Delegate Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the House of Delegates, I would like to introduce especially Don Dransfield from Monroe County and Jim Gore, if they would stand up. They're active in our Farm Bureau, and they're down here for Ag Day. Also, anyone else here that's from down here for Ag Day from the Farm Bureau, I would invite you to stand up, and please, let's make them feel welcome.
Gentleman 28th, Ellicott Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Cooper and myself, we have 2 pages joining us today. We have Sam and Eli Jordan, and they are here with their dad, Russ Jordan, who led us in prayer this morning. If the House would please make them welcome.
Gentleman 32nd, Doggett Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to introduce my Fraser Singleton intern. His name is Chance McTaggart. He is from Glenville State College, and look forward to working with him this week. And would the House please make him feel welcome?
Lady in the 52nd, Doggett Rowan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Visiting us today from Hampshire and Mineral County for Ag Day, I have several friends. Justin Weekly, Donna Brooke Alt, John Weiss, Laura Staley, Mark Haddix, F.J. Grady. And with Farm Credit, we have Kaylee Clivinger, Sarah Cyphers, Katie Frazier, and actually from Wirt County, Derek Egbert. And I have a very, very special guest, a former second grade student of mine, Keith Bohr from Hampshire County. Would they please stand and the House give them a wild and wonderful West Virginia welcome?
Gentleman 16th, Doggett Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce everyone my Fraser Singleton intern for the week, Kaylee Kimberlin. She's from Bluefield but attends Marshall University and studying political science. Would the House make her feel welcome?
Gentleman the 7th, Doggett Harshbarger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I'm joined by 4 pages from Pleasants County Middle School. If they could please stand when I recognize them. Laura Hacker, Emma Weichert, Virginia Haddix, and Braden Whited. And I'm not sure who they're accompanied for. I don't have their names. I'd also recognize if the House could please give them a warm welcome. I'd also like to recognize a former delegate that used to sit in my seat, Delegate Woody Ireland. Thank you.
Gentleman the 16th, Doggett Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel almost like the gentleman from the 30th there. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to recognize my mother up in the gallery, Miss Carla Linville. Would the House make her feel welcome?
Gentleman 36, Doggett Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to have an intern today in the Fraser Singleton program. First of all, I want to say I salute the committee for a great job that they do in getting interns, and the quality of the interns that we get, I think, is proof that the program is working and very helpful to us. Today, I have as my intern for the week, Cal Colangelo. He's from West Virginia State University. He's from Elkview, West Virginia, and he is in history and political science. And I'm hoping he'll go to law school, but we haven't talked about that. Thank you very much. Please welcome him.
Gentleman 37th, Doggett Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 2 introductions today. First, I'd like to introduce my Fraser Singleton intern for the week. This is Grace Reed. She is from Santa Cruz, Bolivia, but she's a sophomore at Marshall University where she is studying international affairs. Make Grace feel welcome. Also, we're joined today in the South Gallery by a group of students from the Lighthouse of Learning over on the west side of Charleston, and they are accompanied by their teacher, Miss Judy Smith. Please stand and would the body make you feel welcome.
Gentleman the 24th, Doggett Tomlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Rodriguez, I would like to welcome our pages from Buffalo Elementary in Logan County. If they'd stand as I say their names: Caleb Brown, Candace Nelson, Duke Harless, Brooklyn Scholl, Aaron Vanover, James Charles, and they are escorted today by their Counselor Dana Evans, and their parents. Please make them welcome. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 60th, Douglas Wilson.
Muchas gracias, señor Speaker. Acá conmigo hoy día tengo el gran placer presentar a la señorita Edith Martinez de Antioquia, Colombia. Edith is here to study political science at Concord University. Please make her feel welcome. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 11th, Douglas Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce Delegate Kelly's Fraser Singleton intern, Caitlin Kirk. She is a student at Marshall University majoring in International Affairs and Political Science. Please make her welcome.
Gentleman from the 8th, Douglas Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce my Fraser Singleton, the intern for the week, Hyla Morell. She is a senior at Marshall University, majoring in International Affairs. The House will make her welcome.
Gentleman from the 4th, Douglas Canestraro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In one of the galleries today from Marshall County, we have our president of our Farm Bureau, Mike Mariner. I'd ask you to please make him feel welcome.
Gentleman from the 26th, Douglas Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have several groups of people I'd like to introduce. First of all, I have interns, and they are from Fall River Elementary. Would you please welcome, and I'd like them to stand, please welcome Alexander Hance, Sophia Glass, Hunter Muncie, Tanner Little, Haley Barber, and Terry Small. They are escorted today by Jillian, I think they're in the gallery behind me, Jillian Goins, Heather Barber, Judith Small, Crystal Hance, Crystal Glass, and Donna Muncie. If you'd make them feel welcome. Also, Mr. Speaker, in the rear of the gallery, at least he was, former student of mine is now a photojournalist, J.D. Belcher from McDowell County. Thank you very much.
Lady from the 51st, Douglas Fleischauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have several people here from Monongalia County that came down on a bus for Agriculture Day, but I want to specifically mention a couple of students who came down, Caden and Dylan Statler. Would they please stand? And they were accompanied by Amanda Statler. Would she please stand also? And everyone else who came down on the bus from Monongalia County, would you please stand so we can greet you as well? Thank you.
Gentleman of the 48th, Douglas Miley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the delegates from the 48th District, we have a special page with us. Avery Williams, he is the son of Gina and Jason Williams. Jason, as you may recall, was a former employee of the House, and they're in the West Gallery, and they are also accompanied by their daughter, Aubrey. If they would stand and allow the House to make you feel welcome.
Gentleman of the 2nd, Douglas DeSerio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today it's my privilege and honor to introduce our 3 Brooke County Commissioners, although I only see 2 of them at the moment, but we do have with us today Stacy Ukel-Wise and our newest County Commissioner, A.J. Thomas, if you would stand, and the one that I am sitting in his seat, our longtime colleague and dear friend, the Honorable Tim Ennis. If you'd stand and please make them welcome.
Gentleman of the 50th, Douglas Angelucci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, I'd like to take a moment to welcome Fairmont State University President Dr. Myrna Martin.
Lady from the 65th, Douglas Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce my intern for the week. Her name is Lexi Douglas, hailing from my hometown of Charlestown. She is a WVU senior at only 19 years old, and I look to make her a legislative prodigy by the end of this week. Will the House stand and make her feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 34th, Doggett Boggs.
Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very pleased to introduce my Fraser Singleton page, or not page, but intern this week, Luke Bonnet. Luke is a graduate of Braxton County High School. He's a junior at Glenville State College, and he's a political science and history major. Really glad to have Luke here. He's a great friend. Please make him welcome.
Gentleman from the 55th, Doggett Spinagle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate John Paul Hott and myself, we have Ms. Tasha Thompson down from Grant County here in the West Gallery. Will she please rise, and will the House make her welcome?
Gentleman from the 43rd, Doggett Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce my Fraser Singleton for the week. It's Calvin Tomlin. He's senior at WVU. He's from Logan, and his intentions is to attend law school at WVU. Thank you.
Lady from the 51st, Doggett Fleshauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce my Fraser Singleton intern for the day. This is Katie McClung. It's kind of nice to have somebody when you know their family. She is a resident of Morgantown. She's also a student, senior at WVU, studying criminology. Would you please welcome Katie?
Gentleman from the 16th, Doggett Mant.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to make welcome all of the teachers and the people that came down to speak this morning and to share their views and ideas and opinions. And I would like to go ahead and give a thank you to those that are traveling down to be here at 5:30 today. You know, they've taken a big time out of their day. They've come down to allow us to listen to them and have taken us up on our invitation. So if everybody in here could give a welcome, and those that came down, if you're still here from this morning, please stand. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 9th, Doggett Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, our doctor of the day comes from Charleston, West Virginia. Please welcome Dr. Norit Dewan.
Are there further introductions? If not, reports to standing committees.
Committee on Education has had under consideration Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 451, Comprehensive Education Reform, reports the same back with amendment, with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to Committee on Finance.
Report to be received. Bill be referred to Committee on Finance.
Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2673, creating the Oil and Gas Abandoned Well Plugging Fund, House Bill 2793, expanding applicability of educational facilities for the West Virginia College Prepaid Tuition and Savings Program, House Bill 2821, updating provisions for command, clerical, and other pay, and House Bill 2848, relating to the West Virginia ABLE Act, reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2739, relating to contributions on behalf of employees to a retirement plan administered by the Consolidated Public Retirement Board, and House Bill 2743, eliminating reference to municipal policemen's pension and relief funds and firemen's pension and relief funds in section restricting investment, reports the same back with recommendation that each do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2819, relating generally to contractors, reports the same back with its title amended, with recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Joint Committee on Enrolled Bills has examined, found truly enrolled, and on February 8, 2019, presented to His Excellency the Governor for his action, Senate Bill 177, Fire Commission Rule relating to State Building Code, and Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 255 relating to Emergency Medical Services Advisory Committee.
Report to be received.
Originating in the Committee on Government Organization is House Bill 2992 relating to governmental websites. It's reported with recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Government Organizations had in consideration House Bill 2692 relating to primary elections and procedures. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Government Organizations had in consideration House Bill 2338 allowing the owner of an antique military vehicle to display alternate registration insignia, and House Bill 2359 relating to exemptions to the commercial driver's license requirements. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Banking and Insurance has had in consideration House Bill 2621 relating to background checks of certain financial institutions. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
Report to be received. Bill be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
Committee on Banking and Insurance has had in consideration House Bill 2807 creating an additional modification to the West Virginia adjusted gross income of shareholders of S corporations engaged in banking. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to Committee on Finance.
Report to be received. Bill be referred to Committee on Finance.
Committee on Judiciary has had in consideration House Bill 2709 relating to hunting licenses. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Judiciary has had in consideration House Bill 2173 allowing state and federal law enforcement officers to testify as to the contents and evidence of wiretap or electronic surveillance, and House Bill 2715 relating to Class Q special hunting permit for disabled persons. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report to be received. Further committee reports. Reports to select committees. Messages from the executive.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Henshaw presents a communication from His Excellency the Governor advising that on February 8, 2019, he approved Senate Bill 119.
Messages to be received. Messages from the Senate.
The clerk of the Senate announced that the Senate has refused to concur in the House amendments to the Senate amendment request the House to recede on House Bill 2351 relating to regulating prior authorizations.
Messages to be received. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House refuse to concede from its amendments and the Senate be requested to agree to the appointment of a committee of conference on 3 from each House on the disagreeing votes of the 2 Houses, and that the Speaker be authorized to appoint conferees on the part of the House.
Lady in the 49th moves that the House refuse to recede from its amendments and the Senate be requested to agree to the appointment of a committee of conference of 3 from each House on the disagreeing votes of the 2 Houses, and that the Speaker be authorized to appoint conferees on the part of the House. Is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears no objection. The chair appoints on behalf of the House the gentleman from the 27th, Douglas Ellington, the gentleman from the 9th, Douglas Holland, and the lady from the 32nd, Douglas Staggers. Are there further messages from the Senate?
The Senate has passed with amendment House Bill 2462, issuing a certificate to correctional employees to carry firearms.
Message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration.
Lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that House Bill 2462 be taken up for immediate consideration. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate amendment makes stylistic changes and clarifies that the annual firearm training requirements for certified law enforcement officers is the Law Enforcement Professional Standards Program. Changes by the Senate improve the clarity of the bill and advance its purpose. I move that the House concur with the Senate amendments.
Lady of the 49th moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments. Is there discussion? Is there discussion? If not, those in favor of the lady's motion that the House concur in the Senate amendments, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The House concurs in the Senate amendments. The question now before the House is the passage of the bill as amended. Those in favor of passage of the bill as amended will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected to the House having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2462.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there further messages?
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 16, authorizing expenditure of surplus funds by a Wyoming County Commission.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 30, eliminating tax on annuity considerations collected by life insurer.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Banking and Insurance, then the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 90, transferring safety and treatment program from DHHR to DMV.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 237, improving ability of law enforcement to locate and return missing persons.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 263, limiting number of days legislators may be compensated during extended and extraordinary session of budget bill not enacted.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 323, establishing revenue fund and source to support Department of Agriculture's improvement to facilities.
Message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the reference of the bill to a committee be dispensed with and that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
The lady of the 49th asks unanimous consent that committee reference for the bill be dispensed with, that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time. Are there objections? Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 323, establishing revenue fund and source to support Department of Agriculture's improvement to facilities.
Bill will be advanced. Are there further messages?
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 343, relating to review and approval of state property leases.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Government Organization.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 346, changing rate which certain judges are paid for mileage when traveling within state.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 356, requiring maps provide state and federal prosecutors information.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 453, relating to background checks of certain financial institutions.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to Committee on Banking and Insurance, then the Committee on Judiciary. Are there further messages from the Senate? Resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 60, Complete Count Commission.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and they be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
Lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, that each resolution be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. So ordered. Petitions. Motions.
Delegate Eastep Burton moves to remove from the table the motion by Delegate Fluharty of February 7th, 2019, that pursuant to House Rule 82, that House Bill 2733 be discharged from the Committee on Industry and Labor.
Question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 36th that the bill be taken from the table. The question before the House is not debatable. For what purpose does the lady seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for the purpose of making a motion. This motion is necessary to calm concerns from last week and to focus on the legislative issue. There are thousands of West Virginians who suffer just living their lives in love.
The motion is not debatable. Does the lady have a parliamentary inquiry or other interrupting motion?
I move to remove from the table House Bill 2733, which is now trapped in labor and industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady's motion is before the House. Are there points of order raised? You're on the 50th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm looking at Rule 55 that lists the motions that are not debatable, and to remove from the table is not listed as a motion that is not debatable.
Chair would refer the member to the default rules in Jefferson's, which provides a greater clarity to the rules of the House. Gentleman, the 66, Delegate Espinoza. House will be in order.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker. It's my understanding this bill has been tabled. If it is the desire of members to maintain the current posture of this legislation, we would vote against this motion.
If the members wish that the bill remain on the table, the members would vote no.
Thank you
Are there
very
further
much.
inquiries of the chair? Gentleman, the 50th.
I just got hit by a truck, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to ask another question to follow up with the whip, the majority whip. So if the members want to remove this from the table to proceed with that bill, the vote would be a yes vote. Is that
Gentleman,
correct?
is correct.
Thank you, Mr.
Would be a
Speaker.
yes vote.
Thank you.
Are there further inquiries of the chair? If not, question before the House is a motion. Roll call's been demanded. Is demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question before the House is a motion by the lady from the 36th that the motion be taken from the table. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 40 ayes, 57 nays, 3 members absent not voting, less than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative. Chair declares the motion lost. Are there further motions? Are there further motions? If not, bills introduced.
House Bill 2952, reducing the personnel of the State Department of Education.
Laid in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and they be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
Laid in the 49th, ask unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Senate Bill 267, requiring State Board of Education to adopt policy detailing level of computer science instruction.
Gentleman from the 48th, Douglas Hamrick, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The language in this bill is identical to House Bill 2515 that passed out of House Education and is currently on second reading. The bill directs the State Board to adopt a policy detailing the appropriate level of computer science instruction at each level. The Department of Education would also develop other professional development opportunities to ensure educators are equipped to deliver the best computer science curriculum. To accomplish this, the department may also partner with high-quality computer science professional learning providers. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are the members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent not voting. More than a majority of those elected to the House having voted in the affirmative. Chair declares the bill passed. Clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 267.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2365, clarifying the definition of an employee for the purposes of unemployment compensation and workers' compensation.
Gentleman 27th, Douglas Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. What this bill does is standardize a test that's used to determine whether a person is an independent contractor or an employee. The significance of that is the employer has certain obligations with respect to withholding of various taxes if you're an employee. And in the case of an independent contractor, the independent contractor has those obligations imposed on him or herself. Currently, what we have in West Virginia here is the possibility of 3 different tests being applied to determine that question. Workers' compensation actually applies a single-factor test based on the element of control. The Unemployment Commission adopts a 3-prong test, and the IRS has what's called a 30-factor test. The IRS test has been in effect for over 30 years, and it's embraced by some of our adjoining states, such as Ohio, Kentucky, and Virginia. There are about 20 overall that embrace that. What this bill does essentially is to standardize our tests for both workers' comp and unemployment by adopting the 20 factors test of the IRS, which, as I indicate, has been in use for well over 30 years. Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? Gentleman 37th, Douglas Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to request a ruling on Rule 49.
Yes, as the gentleman has explained his circumstances, you are an independent contractor and would be a member of a class of greater than 5 and are therefore directed to vote. Lady from the 51st.
Thank you. Question of the chair.
Chairman yield for a question. Chairman does yield for a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have received some inquiries about this bill and asking questions that I wasn't sure if I could answer. One of the concerns that has been raised is the effect of this could expand the number of individuals who would be declared independent contractors, and then they would not be eligible for unemployment comp and workers' comp. Is that a possible effect of this bill?
Well, it's certainly not the intention of the bill. The bill is basically to avoid inconsistent results. In my practice, I've been involved in 2 situations where Virginia assessed or came up with a different result than West Virginia, and the federal government had a different result than West Virginia as well. So it doesn't guarantee how the test is going to, the outcome of the application of the test. It simply standardizes the test so that the same test is applied by West Virginia as the IRS, as Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio.
So what you were saying is what your concern was that the employer shouldn't be assessed. My concern is that the employee should get workers' compensation and unemployment comp. Is it possible that this change could reduce the number of people who are eligible if they have a workplace injury?
Well, that would depend on how the test is applied in each individual situation. So as it stands now, you could certainly have a situation where an employer who has employees in both Virginia and West Virginia is treated as their employer in West Virginia, but treated as the employee is treated as an independent contractor in Virginia and by the IRS. It could be converse as well, but what we're trying to do is to have consistency in the test that's applied so that each agency, whether it be the IRS, the unemployment compensation, or workers' compensation, is looking at the same factors when they make that determination. But the outcome is not predetermined. It's just standardizing the test.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there further members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? Does the gentleman wish to close debate? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 74 ayes, 23 nays, 3 members absent not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, chair declares the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2365.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2468, Department of Agriculture Capital Improvements Fund.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to postpone action one day.
Lady in the 49th asks unanimous consent to postpone action one day on committee substitute for House Bill 2468. Are there objections? Are there objections? Chair hears no objection. Action postponed one day. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2583, Family Planning Access Act.
Gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to permit a pharmacist to dispense certain forms of birth control under a standing prescription drug order for up to 12 months after the date of the initial prescription. This is similar to a bill that the House just adopted earlier this session for tobacco cessation products. This proposed law requires that the state health officer issue a statewide standing order for such pharmaceuticals. Pharmacists who wish to participate in these practices will be required to participate in a training program that will be approved by the Board of Pharmacy in collaboration with the Bureau of Public Health. The patient is required to fill out a risk assessment and undergo counseling to determine if the dispensing is appropriate. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? The gentleman from 32nd, Delegate Fast.
Thank you. Would the chairman yield, please?
Chairman does yield.
Yes, sir.
So just so I understand what's taking place here, am I correct that a state health official can issue a statewide standing order that would take the place of a prescription of a doctor?
Yes, for the first 12 months for those products only. After which then they would have to see a provider after that. So it's making access a little easier.
Who would be a statewide health official?
Public health official, as far as like Dr. Gupta, or previously Dr. Gupta, but whoever was in that position.
Okay, and without this legislation, then one would, who wants these contraceptives, would have to go through the traditional form, having an evaluation by their physician, consultation, examination, and then a prescription. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what duties, if a pharmacist wants to participate, first of all, is that optional for the pharmacist?
It is optional, yes.
And what duties do the pharmacists have in providing this contraception during this 12-month period?
They would provide counseling on the usage of it. They also run a risk assessment for the patient to make sure they are not at high risk. If they are at a risk, then they would defer the prescription and refer them to a provider.
And in determining whether a patient is risk or not, high risk or not, how does that differ from what a physician would normally do during a patient examination?
It's pretty similar.
And if it's similar, then what gives the pharmacist the qualifications that a physician would otherwise have to do this risk assessment?
Well, that would be determined by the Board of Pharmacy and Bureau of Public Health as far as determining what's in the risk assessment and in the training that they undergo.
Well, I guess the bottom line is you have a pharmacist doing a risk assessment that traditionally a medical doctor or a doctor
Or other
performs.
provider, yes.
Okay.
It's making access, sort of like when we do vaccinations. Pharmacists administer vaccinations, it just makes it quicker for them to be able to obtain that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak to the bill, Mr.
You may proceed.
Speaker. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would rise to oppose this legislation just for a couple of simple facts. You have a standing order for the entire state by a health official, not a patient's actual doctor, number one. Number two, that this risk assessment, and with these types of medications, you know, I got an email from a pharmacist that I happen to know, and they said that this is very, very serious, that these types of medications can cause, unless they're screened appropriately, can cause very, very serious health problems to the patients. And so now we have a pharmacist doing the health screening, not the physician. And so I think this is a bad way to go, and I'm going to vote no. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is 60th, Delegate Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman please yield? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Do any of the contraceptives considered by this bill include abortifacients?
No.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The lady from the 39th, Delegate Malcolm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
If I'm one of these patients and I go in for my yearly, and the pharmacist gives me my medication, and 9 months later I start having difficulty and I go to a doctor and discover I have cancer, who do I get to sue?
You would probably have to talk to our Judiciary Chair about that one.
Are there further members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? Does the gentleman wish to close debate? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 87 ayes, 10 nays, 3 members absent not voting. More than the majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, Chair declares the bill passed. Clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2583.
Clerk, are there amendments to the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House and the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2661 relating to natural gas utilities.
Gentleman from the 8th, Delegate Anderson, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The abundance of natural gas and the low prices is creating benefits for most of the residents of our state, but the same conditions are have a heavy toll on the traditional conventional gas producers in the state that have served a lot of West Virginia communities for decades. Many people in rural areas are supplied with energy from these older conventional wells that have declining production rates, and the infrastructure is aging. These market conditions have reduced the incentive for producers to drill new conventional wells or maintain or rework existing wells. These conditions are threatening reliable natural gas service to West Virginia customers who are not able to take advantage of large quantities of the shale gas. The purpose of this bill is to assist gas utility companies to provide uninterrupted service to these rural customers. The bill changes the regulation of natural gas utilities in two ways. First of all, the bill empowers gas utilities to ask the Public Service Commission for permission to implement programs to incentivize producers to increase natural gas production. The utilities will be able to recover the resulting costs through a gas utility purchase gas mechanism. This will allow new wells to be drilled and the older wells to be maintained and reworked to increase the dwindling supplies of gas to these consumers. The bill also provides a second option that empowers gas utilities to recover the cost to convert customers to other heating fuels, such as propane or electric, and recover those costs through the purchase gas mechanism. Under the second option, the utilities may also choose to defer the cost recovery to a rate case. This bill allows for cost recovery by utilities without expensive, time-consuming, and complicated rate cases. Under both options, the Public Service Commission will have the final say on whether the costs are reasonable and under the circumstances. Also, the extra cost incurred will be spread across the whole of the utility's customer base and will not be carried entirely by the smaller communities who receive this benefit. I urge passage of this legislation.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are the members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? The gentleman to the 7th, Doug Harshbarger.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I ask for a Rule 49.
Yes, as the gentleman has explained your employment situation, you work in it for a natural gas utility and would be considered as a member of a class of more than 5 members and therefore would be directed to vote.
Thank you.
Gentleman to the 35th, Doug Capito.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd also ask for a Rule 49, although I do work for a company that does not do much utility work. I would, out of an abundance of caution, request Rule 49 from the chair.
Yes, as the gentleman has explained his employment situation, it would be even less connected than the gentleman to the 7th, therefore would be a member of a class and should vote. Other members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative. Chair declares the bill passed. The clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2661.
Are there members of the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2809 relating to prohibited acts and penalties in the Hatfield-McCoy Recreation Area.
Gentleman 27th, Doug Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We took this bill up briefly for amendment purposes on Friday, and I gave a very quick sketch of the purpose of it. Let me just give you a little overview of it. This bill basically deals with a section of the code that governs the Hatfield-McCoy Regional Recreation Authority, which is a public corporation and instrumentality of government that's set up to manage all-terrain vehicle trails. Initially, it was for 9 southern counties. Last year, if you'll recall, we added another 5 counties. Now, a total of 14 counties are involved in the trail system. As I indicated on Friday, we've ran into some difficulty in the southernmost part of the state, specifically Mercer County, with respect to interruption of trail service. And what's the overall structure of the trail system is, this is all privately owned property. Currently, there's about 250,000 acres that are under what are called license agreements. The last I heard, it was 92 different license agreements. Essentially, they allow the trail system to use the surface of the property for these trails that their riders ride on. But the license agreements provide that they are terminable upon a certain amount of notice. And the reason for that is most of these properties either have timber or minerals timber on the surface, minerals underlying the surface that can be developed and in many cases are developed. And in fact, part of the trail system's efforts is to move and relocate trails as those efforts or activities on the surface are evolving. In our particular case, the occupant of one of the properties was a coal company that was running into problems with riders, often what they call outlaw riders, that are leaving the marked trail system, which is clearly marked, and encroaching on these operations, endangering both the riders as well as the members, the workers on those properties. There's timbering operations going on in some places, coal mine operations going on in others. The coal company exercised its right to terminate its use of the trail system, which essentially would have put the entire end of that trail system, which is called the Pocahontas Trail System, out of business. To give you some idea of the scope of the trail system, the last information I had, I think, was 2017. There were over 50,000 riders that came in from 50 different countries, 50 different states and many different countries, generated about $2 million direct revenue to the trail system, but the multiplier effect indicated well over $20 million in economic impact to the area. Now, to get to the point, the purpose of this bill is to increase the penalties to deter the type of activity that threatened the ongoing viability of this project. In other words, currently there's up to a $100 fine if you vary from the trail system and you get out into these areas where there's dangerous activities going on. This bill basically raises that penalty to a $1,000 fine, and if there's damage to property or interruption of active operations, it can be a $2,000 fine. It was felt by the coal company that because of the prevalence of this type of activity and the danger that it created, that unless the penalties were substantially increased to deter this type of activity, they would have to go ahead and exercise their option to shut down the trails. They have now reopened the trails in hopes that this and some other precautions that the trail system is taking will prevent this type of activity that not only jeopardizes the operations but endangers both the riders as well as the workers. That's the purpose of the bill, simply to increase these fines. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? Gentleman from the 36th, Delegate Rowe.
The gentleman would yield. I noticed that the language is not up to 1,000 or up to 2,000. It's a flat,
it is
no
a
matter
flat fee, regardless of the number of violations. It's a flat $1,000 fee.
Was that specifically requested by the coal company or other landowners?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, sir.
Gentleman from the 3rd, Douglas Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would gentleman yield?
Yes.
Looking at the language, just to give a hypo here, if you are on the trail and you veer off without the intent of even veering off, but you happen to go off the trail, you would still be subjected to this $1,000 fine, right?
You would. It's a no-fault penalty. That's correct.
So you don't have to have the intent of going off the trail to still be subjected to a $1,000 penalty?
To the gentleman, the trails are well marked. It would be very difficult to inadvertently veer off the trails.
I understand it may be difficult, but speaking of being well marked, are you going to mark on the trail that you're subjected to a $1,000 fine?
Yes, that's part of the understanding between the trail system and the coal operator.
But it's not in the bill, though, right?
It's not in the bill.
What's the current fine for trespassing on someone's property?
It depends on what I think we passed a bill last year, if I'm not mistaken, dealing with your trespass for first offense. All right, the general trespass is first offense not less than 100 no more than 500. Second offense not less than 500 no more than 1,000. Third offense 1,000 not less than 1,000 or more than $1,500.
So trespassing on a coal company's property is 10 times more expensive than trespassing on a private citizen's property in West Virginia?
No, actually violating an agreement you have as a licensee or as a permittee, yes, carries a higher penalty because it's not an inadvertent violation. It's an intentional violation.
Okay, finally, as the lead sponsor of this bill, I have to ask you, do you believe this bill would change the course of human events?
Definitely. Certainly in Mercer County.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
there other members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 80 ayes, 16 nays, 4 members absent not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, chair declares the bill passed. Clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2809.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? Bills on second reading?
Committee substitute for House Bill 2330, allowing honorably discharged veterans who possess certain military ratings to qualify to take an examination for licensing as a plumber, electrician, and sprinkler fitter.
Are there amendments? If not, bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2405, imposing a health care-related provider tax on certain health care organizations.
Are there amendments? If not, bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2415, requiring the State Board of Education to adopt a policy detailing the appropriate level of computer science instruction.
Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to table the bill as it is the same as Senate Bill 267.
Lady from the 49th moves that House Bill 2415 be laid upon the table. This question is not a debatable question. Those in favor of the lady's motion, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Ayes have it, the motion is adopted. House Bill 2415 is laid upon the table. Further bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2674, creating a student loan repayment program for a mental health provider.
Are there amendments? Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2734, relating to reduced rates for low-income residential customers of privately owned sewer and combined water and sewer utilities.
Are there amendments? Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2813, relating generally to collection of use tax.
Are there amendments? If not, bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 18, relating to crimes committed on state capitol complex.
Bill to be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 61, adding certain crimes for which prosecutor may apply for wiretap.
Bill to be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2109, extending the maximum period of confinement a judge may impose for certain first-time probationary violations.
Bill to be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2609, relating to presumptions of abandonment and indication of ownership and property.
Bill to be advanced.
House Bill 2647, Self-Storage Limited License Act.
Bill to be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2720, authorizing certain investigators and first responders to carry firearms.
Bill to be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2761, modernizing the self-storage lien law.
Bill to be advanced.
House Bill 2878, relating to updating the controlled substances listed on Schedule 1.
Bill to be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleagues, Delegate Kump, Rodriguez, and Jay Kelly.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Leaves to be granted. Remarks by members of the House. Remarks by members of the House. The gentleman from the 22nd, Douglas Maynard. The gentleman from the 43rd, Douglas Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, we heard some words that carried a lot of hate and detest from members of my community, the LGBTQ community. Then it became known that a gentleman called my brothers and sisters socialists, terrorists, and then now has said that my community is a modern-day hate group. I stand before you today, and I want to tell my members, the fellow members of the LGBTQ community, that you are loved. You are loved. You're respected. You matter. And I stand with you in solidarity. In these chambers, we may disagree on policy, but I'm going on record right now and saying that I have nothing but love in my heart for every West Virginian. Everyone in this great state, I have respect for. And I do not and will not stand for hate or discrimination based on ideology on any West Virginian. Also, in case anyone was interested, my caring, loving, and supportive parents never threw me into any body of water, but they did teach me how to swim. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman 22nd, Douglas Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, in the Fraser Singleton, my fingers Fraser Singleton, Corinne Connor from WVU. She's from Wheeling, and she's studying political science and psychology. She's a sophomore. Will the House please make her feel welcome? Thank you.
Gentleman 32nd, Doggett Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce my mother and father here from Marion County, Lonnie Fast and Betty Fast. He's an inventor. She's a registered nurse. They still run the family farm. Please make them feel welcome.
Are there further introductions? If not, miscellaneous business. Gentleman the 50th, Doggett Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to ask unanimous consent that the remarks from the gentleman from the 43rd, Delegate Thompson, be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. So ordered. Lady from the 36th, Doggett East Step Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to urge this body to please consider House Bill 2733. As West Virginians, it is our responsibility to end discrimination. As long as House Bill 2733 is tabled, we are only fueling discrimination in West Virginia, and we are better than that. Thank you very much.
Is there miscellaneous business? If not, lady from the 49th, gentleman from the 50th, Doggett Caputo.
Unanimous consent that the gentlelady's remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move subject to announcements that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. Tuesday, February 12th.
Lady in the 49th moves that subject to announcements, the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on tomorrow, Tuesday, February 12th. Are there announcements? Gentleman from the 10th, Doggett Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 2 p.m. to take up legislation. Your Committee on Finance will also conduct a second public hearing for Senate Bill 451 in the House chamber this evening from 5:30 to 7:30, and will meet following the public hearing at 8 o'clock to take up legislation again. Your Committee on Finance will also meet at 7 a.m. Tuesday morning to take up legislation. The agenda will be posted.
The gentleman 27th, Doggett Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon at 2 p.m. here in the House chamber, the Committee on the Judiciary will conduct a public hearing on House Bill 2519, entitled the Campus Self-Defense Act, also sometimes referred to as Campus Carry. We understand a number of you have committee members meetings, so we've arranged that our staff will be documenting the concerns and suggestions during that public hearing. We'll provide those to anyone who's interested that is unable to attend the hearing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from the 38th, Doggett Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Pensions and Retirement will meet at 4 p.m. tomorrow in House Finance Room, and the agenda will be posted.
Gentleman the 15th, Doggett Foster.
Thank you. Your Industry and Labor Subcommittee meeting for House Bill 2049, that is the prime contractor liability bill, will be meeting at 4 p.m. today, or after the public hearing just announced by the Chairman of Judiciary, whichever is earlier, 4 p.m. or after that public hearing, whichever is earlier. And again, the members of that committee are myself, the gentleman from the 37th, Delegate Pushkin, the gentleman from the 35th, Delegate Scaff, the gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Schott, and the gentleman from the 53rd, Delegate Jennings. And that is 4 p.m. or after the public hearing, whichever is earlier.
Gentleman from the 41st, Doggett Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in room 215E. Republicans will caucus in the chairman's office at 1:30 prior to the meeting.
Gentleman from the 8th, Doggett Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Energy will meet at 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon in the House Judiciary Committee. I would like to caucus with the Republicans at 1:30 in my office. The agenda is posted. Thank you.
Gentleman 28th, Doggett Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In way of announcements, I have a couple here. First of all, the Agriculture in the Classroom trailer is out here on the Capitol grounds on the north side of the building here. If you get a chance, go out and take a little tour of that. And also tonight, starting at 6 o'clock, we're going to have the Taste of West Virginia dinner down at the Marriott. Everyone, please come if you can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 28th, Doggett Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a reminder, your Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 2 p.m. in the House Government Organization Committee room. The agenda has been posted.
Gentleman from the 9th, Douglas Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your subcommittee for House Bill 2199, also known as the Pawn Shop Bill, will meet tomorrow, 9 a.m. in the House Judiciary Committee room.
The gentleman from the 13th, Douglas Cadle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources will meet at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning in Government Organization Room, and the agenda has been posted. Thank you.
Lady from the 3rd, Doug Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Political Subdivisions will meet tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the House Education Committee room. The agenda is posted.
Gentleman from the 53rd, Doug Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Fire and EMS will meet today at 4 p.m. in the GovOrg. The agenda has been posted.
Gentleman from the 16th, Doug Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure will meet today at 1 p.m. in House GovOrg. The agenda has been posted.
Gentleman from the 46th, Doug Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Industry and Labor will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the Government Organization Room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 15th, Doug Foster.
Earlier, I neglected to mention that the subcommittee meeting, as announced earlier, will be in the Judiciary Committee room.
Gentleman from the 36th, Doug Rowe.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, if I may inquire of the Vice Chair of Finance, perhaps, or the Chair, regarding our proceedings in regard to Senate Bill 451. Just a question. I noticed that we have a hearing scheduled, I think, for 5:30 to 7:30 this evening, but we have a meeting at 2 o'clock. Are we going to be taking up, I think the committee may be working on a strike and insert. Are we going to be taking up a strike and insert at 2 o'clock, or will we wait until after the hearing?
No, as my understanding is, the Speaker announced that the report was from the Education to Finance during the reports, so we will be taking up Senate Bill 451 at 2 o'clock. Break for the public hearing at 5:30 to 7:30, and then resume our deliberations at 8 o'clock this evening.
But we don't have a plan to finish the bill before the public hearing, correct?
That's correct. We, as we did Friday, accommodate everybody that couldn't be here this morning for the 8 o'clock public hearing, that we can do it again at 5:30 to 7:30, and then after the 7:30 conclusion at 8 o'clock this evening, then we will take up the bill again. But we will work the bill this afternoon.
So we'll be working now. It's my understanding the strike and insert may have provisions for more charter schools and the ESAs, the savings accounts. Will we take out?
We're taking up the bill as it came over from the Senate or from the Education Committee.
Okay, but most of the comments this morning were on those two measures, the savings accounts and the charter schools. I was just wondering if we'll be taking that up with any finality before the hearing.
Again, Delegate, we'll take the bill up at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady with 32nd, Douglas Staggers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow at 1:30 in room 230, the Democrats on Health and Human Resources will caucus.
Gentleman of the 50th, Douglas Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democratic members of the House will caucus immediately upon adjournment in room 252M. Immediately upon adjournment, Democrats, room 252M. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question before the House is a motion by the lady from the 49th that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow, February 12th. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.